Hello, and welcome to Speak Honest. I am your host and certified relationship coach, Jennifer Noble. It has been my passion for over a decade to help women like you heal what's been holding you back from having the relationships you deserve. Are you struggling with a relationship where you can't seem to voice your emotions, needs, and boundaries without having it blow up in your face? Then you have found the right podcast, my friend. Get ready for practical tips, empowering truths, and honest conversations. Now, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Speak Honest. I am so happy to have you here. And today I wanted to dive into triggers. I really wanted to start talking about triggers today because I thought it would be an interesting discussion. But first, let's figure out what exactly is a trigger. Well, commonly, a trigger is usually used as a word that we use to refer to an experience that people with post-traumatic stress disorder experience. But typically nowadays, this has become more of a colloquial term to just kind of talk about something in your life that is eliciting a response inside of you. So this can include things that people are doing around you or anything else like this. And it's an external factor that causes a reaction inside of you. And so why I think this is really interesting is because what I love is actually how Gabor Maté talks about a trigger. Now, if you don't know Gabor Maté, he's an amazing psychologist who has done a ton of work on trauma and triggers in the body. If you want to read some amazing books, Scattered Minds is an amazing book about ADHD, as well as When the Body Says No. I'm actually currently taking Gabor Maté's Compassionate Inquiry course so I can learn how to incorporate this feelings and emotions and compassion into my coaching practice. But one of my favorite things is how Gabor Maté explains what a trigger is. The way he explains this is that essentially we are the gun, right? So a trigger is indicating that there is something to pull. And what he is saying is that we, as the human, as the person, we are the gun with all of the gunpowder and everything inside of it. And the external factors, such as when somebody disagrees with us or our boss yells at us or our partner doesn't clean the dishes, those are the finger that pulls the trigger, right? So that's the external factor. But we had to have had the gunpowder and the bullet and the mechanism for the gun inside of us first in order for that to happen. And so what he's trying to say here is that a trigger is not inherently a bad thing. And that's what I want to really get into more. But first, let's look at what we can do when we are triggered, right? So we have many options that can happen when we're triggered. And that's where our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response comes in, as I'm sure many of you have heard of these before. And these are the parts of our sympathetic nervous system that gets activated when we think we're in danger. And so this comes all the way back from the days when we saw a bear or a lion and we thought to ourselves, oh shit, well, I got to run now because this thing's going to eat me. Or, okay, well, come on, I'm ready to fight because I know what I'm doing. Or let me just play dead because then they won't notice where I am. These are the reactions. And whichever one you do is the right one for you. It's just a little bit based on your personality and on your childhood upbringing. There's no right or wrong way to react. It's just a natural reaction. But that said, in today's age, we do these reactions for even the smallest trigger. So it's no longer a lion. It's a boss telling us that we didn't do well enough on our project. Or it's not a bear that's going to eat us. It's our partner coming home late from work. Or the kids not cleaning up their room. These are not big, feisty animals that are going to come at us and eat us. But wow, do our bodies still think that they are sometimes. And so in the past, when I've had these kind of reactionary issues to external factors around me, I would absolutely blow up super fast, going 0 to 60 and no problem. It wasn't all the time, but that's because I found this way of really pushing down my feelings. So if someone really pissed me off, I could hold back and I could hold back and I'd keep holding back until that one last straw just hit me hard and then I would lash out. I'm not proud of these moments, of course, but I've been known to throw things or yell at people or slam doors or walk away all of these things. And it's because of this kind of fight or flight mechanism inside of me, this sympathetic nervous system that's getting activated because I am dysregulated. So as I'm doing all of this, I'm just kind of wondering like, well, why does this keep happening? What's going on? And it's definitely not a healthy way to be acting. So what can we do? What can we do if we are triggered? Well, the first part before we get into all of this is understanding that no matter what happens, we will be triggered on a daily and sometimes hourly basis. If you're not triggered, then you're honestly just not like actively living your life, because external factors are what we need to grow. They are the catalyst that helps us grow. And if we haven't dealt with the internal issues of our past, then we will continue to see external factors not as growth catalysts, but as triggers. But what is the trigger, right? It is the thing that makes the gun go off. It is the catalyst. The trigger is the catalyst. But the word trigger has gotten such a bad connotation nowadays. Like there's so much negativity attached to it that I would love to see us not so much talking about the triggers in our life, but what are the things outside of us, the external factors that we can't control that affect us? The ones that we utilize to align with our best selves instead of allowing them to cause us so much pain. So if someone is disagreeing with us or giving us feedback about something, we can allow that to trigger us by thinking we're not enough or we're stupid or we're never going to get that promotion. Or we can allow those external factors, those words that are coming out of another human, to be our catalyst to grow us, to see that these are things that we could be working on, or maybe even to understand that the things they say don't matter and we can let them go and we don't need to listen to their feedback at all. Because the things people do and say to us, they don't automatically mean that's who we are. And yet that's what we make it. So I want us to start here. Learn how to turn our triggers into catalysts. And we do this by getting really, really curious with ourselves. If we are feeling upset or unsettled, like we need to start looking inward towards ourselves and ask ourselves, why? Why are we feeling this way? So for example, if your partner comes home and they didn't acknowledge you and they went straight to their office, and you can start to feel your body get that like amped up feeling. Maybe you're getting really angry or really sad. In this moment, I want you to stop and take a breath, and I want you to ground yourself by either breathing or counting or looking for the color red or any other grounding techniques that you know of. And if you're interested in learning more about grounding techniques, let me know in the chat or in the comments, because I'd be happy to do a podcast about those. But for right now, I just want you to find your favorite way to ground yourself. And I want you to ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Why am I upset that he didn't say hi when he came in and that he went straight to his room? Maybe you're upset because you don't feel important, or you feel ignored from him. Or maybe you think he's been cheating and now he's rushing off to his office to change out of his shirt so you don't smell her on him. Right? The list can go on and on and on. And that's why there's not a set way of fixing this. We have to be brave enough to look inside of ourselves and ask, what am I feeling, perceiving, and wishing would happen instead? So once you realize that you feel sad because you think he's ignoring you, then you can file this away in your mind. And you can start asking yourself, okay, has he done this before? Is this a pattern or a one-off? And this is where I like to bring in the 3 times rule. I like to allow my partner to do something that triggers me up to 3 times before I say anything. But why? Like, why do I do this? Because it helps me get curious. It helps me use that trigger as a catalyst. If it's the one time he did it, then he must have something going on, and I'm allowing him his autonomy to get that thing done. And this one time isn't going to destroy us, and so I let it go. And I just get curious and I ask myself what's going on. I regulate, I'm fine. But if it happens again, so let's say 2 days later, he comes home, doesn't say hi to me yet again, goes straight into his office, and I still find myself being triggered over this, and I'm getting that really sad feeling, that empty pit in my stomach. I'm going to get curious about it again. Is it the same feeling and the same perception that I'm thinking? And if so, I'll go ahead and jot this down again, usually in a journal or sometimes my notes app, or I have a voice recording. And it just helps me to remind myself of how many times this has happened and how I felt. And then I process through it. Again, I emotionally regulate and I get curious. But then, let's say a couple days later, he does it again. This is a third time now, right? A third time within a week or a month. And now I understand it's time to say something. But, and this is the most important part here, not in the moment. Never, ever, ever talk about this when you are triggered in the moment. If there's one thing I would love for you to take away from this podcast right now, it's that we never, ever bring up the thing that is upsetting us when we are upset. Because otherwise we are not going to be thinking coherently. Trust me on this one. So instead, yet again, we need to breathe, ground ourselves, and get out of the moment before bringing it up. So if after 3 times he's come home, he's not looked at you, he's gone straight to his office, and this is really upsetting you, then maybe later on during dinner, you can say something like, hey, I wanted to chat with you about something that's been making me feel a bit sad. When you're up for it, for that convo, can we chat? This is how you kind of start the conversation. So you don't just come straight out and be like, why are you ignoring me? Right? You want to like set this up and you want to ask, genuinely speaking, does he have the bandwidth for this? And let's say he says, yes, we can chat right now. Great. Okay, keep going. But sometimes they might say, you know what, I'm really tired right now, or I just don't want to deal with this. So if he says that, if he says, I've been really busy, can we do this tomorrow? Then I want you to graciously say, yes, we can wait till tomorrow. Now, if he waits till tomorrow, there is a high chance he's not going to bring this up again. So you need to be the one to remind him. And on a side note here, if for some reason this need to remind him also triggers you, then you need to go back and do this process again, but for this new trigger. And you're going to see how this can continuously keep going, but it gets easier as you go along, I promise. But now the next day, you say to him, hey, babes, can we chat about this now? I'm still feeling really sad about it, and I'd like to get this out of my head soon. So then he says, oh, yeah, totally. Okay, what did you want to talk about? Now, this is where you're going to start talking about the facts. We're going to leave the emotions out of it for right now. This part is really important because this helps communicate what we're actually trying to get across, which is, I've been noticing that lately you're coming home and going straight to your office without saying anything to me after work. But now I want to stop down here real quick with you. And I want to ask you, do you see how this is all facts? There's no judgment. There's no charged words behind here. It's just, I've been noticing that you're coming home, going straight to your office without saying anything to me. There's no, you've been ignoring me when you come home from work. You're not even looking at me. Why don't you want to look at me when you come home from work? You're storming straight to your office. There's no charged words here. This is all facts. This part is so important to get to. And that's why we have to do this, why we have this conversation when we're not in a triggered space, because it's almost impossible to give general facts of a situation when we are triggered, when we are upset in that moment. So we give the facts, and then we go from there. Next, we're going to go into the part of the communication, of the conversation, that we start getting curious. And now we're going to ask him questions. So we're not going to jump into feelings yet either. And I know that sometimes this can go against what we've been taught. But right here, we are going to ask, is there anything you want to chat about with me, as this isn't really normally what you do? And see that curiosity there? So you've laid out the facts and now you're asking him questions. You're getting curious. You're not jumping in and saying, you aren't talking to me when you come home and that makes me feel sad and I need you to talk to me, right? That's kind of what people keep jumping around saying out in the ether of the internets and all the Instagrams and all this stuff, saying this is how you have to communicate. And there is some understanding behind that. But also, we first want to get curious. We don't want to jump to making it all about ourselves. Because if this really is outside of the norm of what your partner is doing, and you truly love and care about them, we need to be getting curious about what's going on for them. So we ask, hey, I noticed this thing is different. Is there anything that you want to tell me? Is there anything you need to chat about? What's going on? Are you good? Like, can I help with anything? See how this is so different and now you're going towards your partner? This is how we start to repair these rifts that are happening. Because maybe he is really swamped at work, or something else is going on in his mind, or he had an argument with a friend. And if we jump straight into telling him that it makes us feel sad, he's not going to actually be able to open up and share with us what's going on, because his fear is going to be, oh shit, I upset her. Now I have to make things better. So with all of this, maybe he did say, Yeah, you know what, babes? I'm super swamped at work. My boss yelled at me recently that I wasn't getting enough done. So when I get home from work, I want to keep reading over this document that I am preparing for because we have a big meeting coming up next week. Bam. Wow. Right? Imagine you heard this. Imagine that this is what he did to explain this, and he looks sad and dejected when he's going there. Would you feel now like you want to support him in this? Like you want to go towards him? Because that's kind of how I feel about this. But I also want to be clear. It's actually okay if you still are feeling upset. If you're still feeling like, oh, he is putting more into his work than into me. And that's okay. Anything you feel here is absolutely allowed. If you feel like his explanation takes you out of your trigger, then you can say to him, oh, wow, that seems like a lot. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Is there anything you need from me to help you support in this? And that's how we can start to go closer and connect with our partner. Or if that doesn't feel genuine to you because you are actually still really upset and you desperately need that hello kiss when he gets home to feel connected to him, that's okay too. So let's figure out a way to talk about that. Maybe we could say something like, wow, babes, that seems like a lot you're dealing with. And I know you have so much going on, but also I've really missed you lately. Do you think that you have enough energy in you to just come quickly say hi to me and give me a kiss before going into your office to do more work? See, now you've communicated your needs and you found a way to repair the rift that was caused because he was struggling with something outside of your relationship. This is one way that we can work through our triggers when they're coming up and how we can prepare them through communication. But now I kind of want to know what you think. Does this sit right with you as you're hearing me talk? Is this something you think you can do? The 3 times rule? Are you able to sit in your trigger and your frustration and grow from it in the time being while you figure this out? Can you get curious? Is this something you think you can do? Or are you feeling like your situation is maybe a little bit different and nuanced and that this would never work with your partner because he would never listen or you would never be able to do this? And the thing is I love that. I really do, because I love working with people who have nuanced questions. I've been there. That was always my thing. Like, oh, that sounds great for you, but this would never work for me. And here's why. That sounds like you. I would love to work with you through this. There's a couple different ways. You can join my free Facebook group, Speak Honest, and the link is in the show notes. And also, you can get all of your questions asked there. So I tend to be in the group often, and any questions that you have, you can ask in there at any time. You can even jump on a podcast call with me every other week. I do coaching calls with clients, and we can work on that through here. And the great thing about that is it allows for other listeners to hear those nuanced questions and really get to the understanding of why what they're doing is what they're doing. Why does this keep happening? Why do these patterns keep happening? And that's how we get through there. Unfortunately, I am currently fully booked right now up with clients, so I'm not taking any one-on-one clients. But if you are interested in getting on the wait list, when I open back up, I tend to take a look at who signed up first. And so please feel free to sign up for my wait list. I'll keep you updated with any news or exclusive offers that I have planned as the year goes on. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here, as always, and for listening. And I hope that you are able to turn your triggers into catalysts. As we wrap up today's conversation, always remember that healing is a journey, not a destination. And it is an honor to be a part of your healing journey. If you want to dig deeper into the topics we covered today, be sure to head over to our show notes where you can find all of the valuable information mentioned in today's episode right there. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's podcast. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover our podcast. Until next time, remember to speak up and speak honest.